Hello, Cheeseheads, and welcome to another admittedly slightly delayed instalment of Seb's Sunday Transfer Talk, which this week, you may have noticed, falls on a Tuesday. Yes, Sunday was in fact my birthday, and I was being wined and dined by the current Mrs. Short, and so delayed this week's show. Apologies, but Cheeseheads, don't fear. We have a lot to cover. This week, we'll be focusing on 4 big name players who Antonio Conte has obviously deemed surplus to requirements, looking at some names who could go out on loan, and as always, looking at some potential incomings in what has already been a busy transfer window. Now, first up, something slightly different. Instead of looking at a specific player, this week we'll be looking at a specific team, namely Spanish European Cup semi-finalist Villarreal. Now, the reason I want to focus on them is that a total of 5 names have been linked since the weekend as either going to Villarreal from Spurs or the other way around. 3 of Spurs stay-at-homers, Sergio Reguilón, Tanguy Ndombele and Giovanni Lo Celso have all been linked with a move to the Yellow Submarine in Spain, while the names of centre-back Pau Torres and Pervis Estupiñán, had to say that right, continue to be linked with a move to North London. So, how much truth is there in the rumours? Well, it appears to not be as fanciful as you might think. Firstly, Spurs do still have interest in Torres, despite the loan signing of Clement Lenglet. As we know, Torres has been high up on Fabio Paratici's wish list ever since the Italian took up the role last summer, and his €55 million release clause does seem very good value for the Spanish international. Torres himself wanted to stay at Villarreal last season, as we know, and has also expressed an interest in Manchester United, but their new boss, Erik ten Hag, has made it clear that he wants to sign Lisandro Martinez instead. It was also reported by various sources this week that Villarreal may accept a lower bid for Torres as they look to garner money for their own wish list, which includes both Sergio Reguilón and Giovanni Lo Celso. Now, according to Spanish publication Marca, Reguilón has instructed his agent Kia Joorabchian to find him a new club, and Villarreal are interested. Indeed, Spanish newspaper El Periódico Mediterráneo, I think I've said that right as well, wrote this week about the intertwined situations of various Villarreal and Spurs players and claimed that Reguilón's omission from Spurs touring party to South Korea is down to the fact that Antonio Conte has asked for the signing of this guy, Villarreal's Pervis Estupiñán, in his place. The outlet has already made similar claims actually since the end of June, and with Tottenham's left back not even boarding the plane, in their words, they claim that their theory is now backed up. It's also claimed that Reguilón's departure from Spurs is actively being worked on, and Sevilla, in this article from the weekend, are mentioned as a feasible option. Well, today, just before I came on to do this show, it is being reported more widely now that Sevilla are in talks for Reguilón, so maybe that one will have legs as the week goes on. It's also reported by various sources that Spurs are open to a loan for Reguilón as long as a future fee is agreed. I think it's fair to say Reguilón will be on his way this summer, and it's likely that he will have a few suitors to choose from. However, whether Spurs are in the market for another left wing back, I think is a different story, and one that might become clear actually this week when we see what role Ivan Perisic takes up, which we may well see in this week's friendlies. It would be my assumption that Perisic has been signed mainly to play at wing-back, backed up ably by Ryan Sessegnon, especially as Richarlison has also been signed, obviously, to play in an attacking role. Personally, I think the Estupiñán signing doesn't really make too much sense, especially as last season we saw Matt Doherty and Ben Davies also cover that role in emergencies. The signing of Torres, however, I think that would be an opportunistic one, rather than one that Spurs are actively pursuing. If indeed he is available for €45 million, then I have no doubt Spurs could try and wrap up a deal for someone who is a long-term target. However, let's not forget, Spurs currently have 7 first-team centre-backs. So I think it's doubtful Torres comes in unless 1 or 2 of those are moved on. This man, Giovanni Lo Celso, is willing to move to Villarreal following his loan there last season, and Spurs are simply waiting on an offer that meets their valuation of around 24 million euros, and therein lies the problem. Lo Celso is thought to favour a move back to Spain, where he believes he will pick up the game time needed to secure a place in Argentina's starting 11 for the World Cup. But Spanish teams are still struggling financially after COVID, and essentially Villarreal needs Spurs to buy a player from them in order to be able to afford Lo Celso. It's my understanding that Spurs have refused loan offers for Lo Celso, and they are actually looking to sell him and recoup as much of the 32 million euros they paid for him. Other rumours that I've seen are that Fulham are interested in taking him on a loan, and I think certainly there could be a few Premier League clubs interested, but Lo Celso's wish is to go back and play in Spain. Now, the final player linked with Villarreal is Tanguy Ndombele. With Mundo Deportivo and Get French Football News, they both claim that he could be set for a move to Spain. However, I can't really see any serious links. Mundo mentioned Villarreal. I can't see really where they're getting that story from. And they also claim that PSG are interested in Ndombele, even quoting a figure of 32 million euros, exactly half the fee that Spurs paid for him 3 years ago. I can't see any evidence of anyone actively pursuing Tanguy Ndombele. As I've said before in these shows, I think it's Paratici's biggest job of the summer to try and move him on, either on loan and try and get some of the wage demands back. It's a bit of a sorry situation, the Ndombele situation, obviously being left at home. And it, like I say, doesn't appear that anyone is actively pursuing him at this moment in time. One player who there is a lot of interest in, a serious amount of interest in, and I don't think we'll struggle to find a buyer for, is Harry Winks. It's my understanding there are a number of clubs who've registered that kind of first interest in the midfielder, and that Spurs are willing to talk about a permanent deal, and a permanent deal only, for around the value of £20 million. These clubs are Crystal Palace, Southampton, Brighton, Bournemouth, Fulham, Everton, Leeds, Leicester, Newcastle, Sevilla, and Atletico Madrid. They've all been credited with an interest, although I cannot see any reports anywhere of any kind of serious bidding taking place, or at least any value, certain value being put on him from one of those clubs. However, of those clubs, it is important to remember Palace, Brighton, and Leeds have all lost key central midfielders so far in this summer transfer window. I feel that there is a lot of sense, and Winks would make a good. He's a good option for a lot of these clubs. On the other side of it, obviously, a lot of these players will want to choose the best option for them, especially when they do have so many options. However, they also want to get sorted quickly. I expect Winks to make a decision on where he wants to go, and I believe his agents are working on it, and something could be done before the end of this month. Now, on to potential outgoings. And this concerns, obviously, two centre-backs. One who's been left behind due to illness from the South Korea tour, and one who has actually travelled, Joe Rodon and Japhet Tanganga. It's my understanding that Rodon could still leave in this transfer window, either permanently or on loan, and that Nottingham Forest are the club most interested in his signature. In fact, Rodon's illness might well have signalled an unfortunate end, I think, to his time at Spurs for now. We've all seen the training session footage from South Korea with the players being sick and collapsing on the sidelines. And I do wonder how much of that can be replicated by the players that have been left at home for various reasons. Also, I think it's fair to say Rodon is obviously 6th or 7th choice centre-back. And with Pau Torres and Gleison Bremer still being linked, a move away for Rodon permanently or on loan, I think does still make a lot of sense for the Welshman in World Cup year. Obviously, a big few months coming up for him. Japhet Tanganga, he's wanted by a number of Premier League clubs on loan. Loan only being mentioned at the moment. With Bournemouth rumoured to be interested in taking him. That rumour broke on Friday that there were talks ongoing. And Everton and Southampton also mentioned. It's interesting as well, the interest from the Italian clubs that we mentioned in a previous show. That definitely seems to have died down over the last few weeks. And it's certainly, I think they've gone for more homegrown options themselves. So I don't think a move to Italy is something that will happen for Tanganga this summer. It's interesting, obviously, Tanganga qualifies as fully homegrown for European competition, something Spurs definitely need to keep an eye on. But on the flip side of that, a loan deal could do him the world of good if he can get a season under his belt where he stays injury-free. Either way, I feel one of these players will leave this window, and possibly both if Spurs can find a way to bring in one of their other central defensive targets. If I had to choose which one I think is more likely to leave, I think it probably is Rodon. Don't know whether that'll be permanently or on loan, but certainly I think he needs game time. And as I said, with Tanganga fulfilling that homegrown, hoping to fulfill that homegrown quota, he's one they might well keep. Now, on to more possible incomings. And first up, this guy, the protracted, I think it's fair to say, signing of Jed Spence. There was encouraging news this week. If you are a fan who wants to see Spurs sign Jed Spence, he was left out of Middlesbrough's squad for their pre-season tour of Portugal. It's my understanding Spence is literally waiting for the green light to finalise the move. Personal terms have already been agreed. And it obviously is a shame, I think, for the player that he's not made the move sooner and isn't in South Korea with the first team squad. Indeed, Borough boss Chris Wilder has also spoken of his frustration. He told local Middlesbrough media this week, and I quote, "I've got to say, I've taken myself away from it. It's not my job now. It's gone beyond me, and it's not up to me to do the negotiating or agree a deal. That's with the club and the owner and the chief executive." Again, as I said, this is a deal I expected to be concluded sooner rather than later. And I've seen, as we covered, I've seen a lot of abuse that Daniel Levy's been getting. In the words of the Twitterati, just put a few more million down, Levy, and get it done. Obviously, I hope no one would take that seriously. My understanding, for reading between the lines, is pretty much a fee has been agreed. We're not too far away. It's the add-ons and the sell-on fee and things like that, which is actually quite rare for a Championship club to ask of a Premier League club. You know, especially one of the standard of Tottenham, where you would hope that if he was a success, he wouldn't be sold on. You know, Spurs would want to keep him. So a lot going on there. Negotiations still ongoing. Obviously, with Levy in South Korea, I don't know how that impacts that, but certainly I do expect Spence to happen. All the signs are showing that is a deal that will happen. Finally, and I know it's a brief show this week, so apologies for that, but obviously with the squad out in South Korea, there is a lot less going on, or certainly a lot less hitting the news. But remember this guy, Paulo Dybala, still a free agent. And certainly someone that Spurs are still interested in. It's my understanding Dybala's wage demands have lowered, and that two Italian clubs, that is mainly namely AC Milan and Roma, PSG, Manchester United, Chelsea and Spurs, are all still asking to be made aware before they make any move for his signature. Dybala obviously was originally thought to be headed to Inter Milan, but their signing of Romelu Lukaku on quite a significant wage deal has put paid to that, as now I understand very unlikely to happen. And indeed, Angelo Mangiante of Sky Sports Italy, he posted up this week that Dybala has reduced his wage demands to just 6 million euros per year. Works out to about £130,000 a week. Now, I know it's a lot of money, but I actually find that hard to believe. The original quote for Dybala's wages was something around the £240,000 a week mark, which would have made quite a few clubs, probably including Spurs, balk, even though it's at a free transfer, it upsets the wage structure. However, if indeed his wage demands have come down, and I think we all know Dybala is a long-term target, if we can meet his personal terms, it's certainly one to keep an eye on, certainly one that I don't think will go away and might even gather a bit of pace over the next few weeks. Certainly the longer it takes, you do start to wonder where Dybala's final destination will be. Well, cheeseheads, I know it was brief, but thank you ever so much for tuning in. As I do my caller impression, and hit that like, hit that subscribe. You may well have seen we got to 5,000 likes this week. I'd like to thank you all. I would say it's all down to me, but we all know that's not true. But we're very, very grateful for your help and support over the last year, particularly. If you haven't, please subscribe. Please like the video. Please share it far and wide. And also, with regards to pod, there will be more pods coming up. I'm actually going to do another quiz pod next week. You might, if you haven't listened to that one from last week, then please listen to that again. We'll be doing another one for next week, hoping with Franco and Dave. And there'll be plenty of content. There's another show on Wednesday, YouTube show, another show on Friday. So tune in for Becky, John, Caller, HG, all of the normal Cheese Room cast, and probably a few extras as well. As always, I'd love to thank John and JP and Caller this week for helping put this show together. And Cheeseheads, as always,